A new season means a new set of loadouts for you, and it's been a few weeks since we last touched on the Warzone meta, thanks to all the chaos of the Modern Warfare 2 reveals, and since then, honestly, a lot has changed. Today, we're breaking down the top 10 best meta loadouts that you should be using and how to best properly build your weapons to maximize success. As we go along, drop your thoughts down below. As always, by no means is this a definitive 1 to 10 list, though I do believe this time around the top are a bit more solidified. However, once you get outwards towards like 6 and 7 and beyond, that's where there's certainly some wiggle room, so if you have a weapon you think is the top 10, feel free to drop it down below. We're all here for the same reasons, to try and do better, so feel free to share with the community what you feel may be a hidden gem. If you enjoy the video, you find it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on it, and if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with all things Warzone, loadouts, and more, as well as upcoming Modern Warfare 2 content. If you're interested in joining us on that road to 500,000 subscribers, while staying on top of all of that, I'd love to have you. And finally, with Season 4's introduction, if you've yet to pick up the Battle Pass or you'd like to pick up something in the shop and would like to support the channel a little further, consider using creator code ESPRESSO in the Support a Creator function. It's an entirely optional way to support the content a bit further, but again, is entirely optional, so do not feel pressure to do so. But if you do, tweet me a picture. I'd love to shout out some of your generous support in upcoming videos. That said, let's talk about the top 10 loadouts that you should be using. So, I know that we normally tell you, hey, this is in no particular order, and for the most part, that's usually correct. They're usually not in any particular order, but today there's a handful of weapons that I definitely think need to be talked about first and foremost, and are pretty high up there in the sort of solidified positions. Number 1, the NZ41. The NZ has had a surprising rise to the top, because a short period of time ago, the NZ really wasn't even in contention. It really could have been viable perhaps, but it really wasn't in the conversation for anywhere close to the best weapon. But today, it sits atop the meta as what I'd argue is the best weapon in the game right now, especially for medium to long range. So when we talk about weapons that are ridiculously easy to control and can pack a punch, this is right up there. One of the big things that you'll notice is the lack of recoil with this, due in part to the Sakura rounds that we end up running, as well as some controlling factors and attachments. Before that, I'd recommend the build of the MX Silencer, the Orb Weaver 360mm barrel, the 2.5 times optic, the Orb Weaver E-Pack, the hand stop, the Sakura 50 round magazine, lengthened, polymer grip, frenzy, and fully loaded. Now, a couple of notes on this build in particular. Number 1, the Orb Weaver 360mm barrel ended up actually getting its bullet velocity fixed. Previously was kind of second best to the burst barrel if you put on the full auto conversion on that, but the Orb Weaver now takes the cake as that definitive best, offering control and bullet velocity that is best in class for the weapon itself. For the grip, you can end up either using the polymer grip or the taped grip. Taped grip is kind of a hot topic of discussion right now because it was busted. It offered 15% additional movement speed here, whereas right now I think the base is like 5% that it offers, but it's been fixed now so that it's not necessarily broken. It still adds benefit, but you can get that weapon swap speed and additional movement speed on top of that. So it really comes down to what you prioritize, but if you want to go for control, I still think polymer is the way to go. And then in terms of an optic, I'd take the 2.5 times. I know a lot of people are using the 3 to 6 times, and previously I would be as well, but it's something that visual bounce is still a little bit defined, so the 2.5 brings it out to the point where you can challenge something at medium to long range, and you won't really notice too much of any sort of recoil. But overall, this thing is a powerhouse, and it is incredibly easy to control, so give it a try. Number 2, the Blixen. The Blixen, I don't know that we've touched on the Blixen just yet in our loadout videos. If we did, it might have been like right at the introduction of it in mid-season, but since then, it's become the SMG of choice for high-level gameplay. I'd argue the Marco is up there as well, but we'll get there in just a second. The Blixen is great for a number of different reasons. Mobility speed, handling, control and recoil and fire rate, and it packs a punch damage-wise as well. The Blixen honestly is just one that you can zoom around the map with and is reliable outwards to medium range even, so you can't go wrong with it. For this, I'd recommend the recoil booster, the 9-inch RMK barrel, the slate reflector, the removed stock, the hand stop, the Gorenko 54 round magazine for that added headshot damage, while also oppositely not sacrificing any body damage. This is what we normally see in those headshot multiplying conversions on Vanguard attachments, but this one just offers the benefit with really no drawbacks that will take away from the overall build of the weapon. Lengthened as the ammunition, taped grip, again for that aiming stability, movement speed, weapon swap quickness, and sprint to fire speed. This getting adjusted with Season 4's update, though again, do note that this is not broken to the point where it offers 15% added mobility, whereas it did before. With this sort of post-patch adjustment, it's now been readjusted and is only offering like a 5% movement bonus, if I'm not mistaken. Fleet as well as quick. This, again, one of those weapons you can just zoom around the map with and get the job done. Outside of that, we're going to talk about the new introduction of the Marco 5. Now, the Marco is very comparable to a lot of SMGs like the Blixen here that have some solid stopping power, has some decent mobility, and may not have the fastest fire rate, but is absolutely something controllable and very easy to use. Now, I've seen a lot of people use the akimbo perks on this, but personally, I don't like being bogged down by the change in movement speed, and of course, being that it's only hip fire, you're going to have a little bit less success outside of close quarters engagements. For this, though, I'd recommend the recoil booster, the body 240mm barrel for that extra fire rate, the slate reflector, the Perfetto Estrada stock, offering a bit more control and aiming stability as well as ADS speed, the hand stop, the 64-round magazine, lengthened, taped grip, gung-ho, and quick. Now, the thing that really makes this build is gung-ho as well as that taped grip, and if you really want to go a step further, you can, instead of the hand stop, equip the skeletal underbarrel for even more movement speed. This will allow you to absolutely zoom around the map. It is one of the fastest moving builds that we've seen in Warzone's history, up there before the update to the update with the Mac 10 and when that was busted in Black Ops Cold War. But again, with this now being adjusted, the tape grip now fixed today, it isn't as fast as it was, say, yesterday or the day before, but still a phenomenal movement build here for the weapon. Outside of that, I'd still say the bar is up there in our top sort of 5 with this. The bar being something that just packs a punch, but is incredibly easy to manage recoil. We've talked about this before. We put it in our top 10 loadouts that have 0 recoil, because it does. Even though it did get slight adjustments, really a lot of what was adjusted in the patch notes for this was the BMG rounds, which really wasn't the meta ammunition to be using. So for this, I'd end up recommending the MX silencer, the CGC 30-inch barrel for that bullet velocity and recoil control, the 2.5 times optic, the Chariot WR stock for even more control, the hand stop, the 8mm Klauser 40-round magazine, lengthened, polymer grip. Again, you can use taped grip if you'd like, but if you're playing for control, which I would highly recommend here at this, polymer is the way to go. Hard scope, and fully loaded. So you really kit out this weapon to have absolutely no recoil, and it still will show. So definitely try that out if you have not used it already. Then after that, honestly, I think the Vargo is back up here in the sort of top 5 to 6 position. The Vargo got a handful of buffs with the Season 4 adjustments to it, but as we've talked about before, Cold War weapons are pretty standard. What you'll see on one rifle build is what you'll see on mostly all of the rifle builds, so we can breeze past this one, the GRU suppressor, Task Force barrel, Axial Arms 3 times optic, Spetsnaz grip, and the 60-round magazine. But seriously, if you have not used this after the update, give it a try again, because I definitely think that you'll be able to absolutely rock with this thing. Has minimal recoil, decent damage, and has a solid fire rate. I'm really curious to see mid-season here when the Vargo S is introduced, the Vanguard version of the Vargo, how this becomes then maybe obsolete, if it stacks up. We'll have to wait and see, but it's odd that we'll see a sort of another meta introduction potentially of the same weapon from a different game. Outside of that, we're going to kind of go into more variable territory now. Some of these may not necessarily adhere to 6 through 10 perhaps, but next up, I would recommend that of the UGM-8. The new LMG, for right now at least, has a pretty solid place in the meta. It packs a punch, it's pretty easy to control in terms of the recoil, and also when you get the Sakura rounds unlocked, it's incredibly easy because it's just a smaller caliber. Now, the interesting part here with this is that you kind of have to play the burst barrel on this. That's the best and easiest to control out of this. So you're going to have a slight burst delay because you can end up making this a full auto conversion. All you have to do is in-game swap from the manual burst to the auto burst. I think that's like left or right on your D-pad or something like that. But for this build, I'd recommend the MX silencer, the 560mm barrel. Again, that burst one. Make sure you end up having it in the full auto burst mode whenever you actually jump in game, but it will offer no damage fall off, recoil control and accuracy, as well as additional damage, all for just the, again, slight penalty of a burst fire speed and a slight sprint to fire penalty. Then I'd run the 2.5 times optic, the Mercier WT stock, the hand stop, the Sakura 125 round box magazine, lengthened. Personally, I'm running the stippled grip for this to offer up additional recoil recovery and initial firing recoil control, then tight grip and fully loaded. Again, you can toss on the polymer grip here if you'd like. That offers more additional flinch resistance and accuracy during controlled fire. But being that you have that burst, it kind of resets slightly, so it's a slight trade-off with that. Outside of that, kind of rounding out our strong suits here at this, and where I think that we're a bit more defined, even though we're kind of in that gray area right now where other things could pop in and out of the list, I'd say the Armaguerra or Armaguerra is one of those weapons that is still in the top 10 here at this. For this, we've talked about it before, but it does pack a punch. It's nice, especially on Fortune's Keep in those close quarters engagements. The recoil booster, the 570mm precision barrel. I personally still like the iron sights, though again, a lot of people will use the slate reflector. Nothing wrong with that. The iron sights just give you a hair more in terms of ADS speed. The folding stock, the hand stop, the 60 round magazine, lengthened, taped grip, again, coming back to that now buffed taped grip here for it. You're going to see that on a lot of SMG play from here on out, I think. Hard scope and quick. After that, we're going to round into our final 3 here at this. Again, a little bit more variable, I think. The STG-44 is still up there, I would say, though, again, it's kind of on the not necessarily outside looking in, but it definitely does in some situations have the opportunity to be outclassed by other weapons. For this, I'd recommend the Mercury Silencer, the 760mm barrel, the 2.5x optic, the weighted stock, the hand stop. I've gone back to the Gorenko 50 round magazine. I'm kind of, again, going back and forth between the 50 and the 60. Both magazines had some adjustments to it with the Season 4 update, so kind of just finding which one feels better. I think it's more personal preference based. Lengthened, polymer grip, focus, and fully loaded. Outside of that, we're going to round out our rifle play with one that is revisiting, again, some Cold War meta play, that being the QBZ. For this, you probably could guess it if you ended up paying attention to Vargo and what we said earlier: the agency suppressor, task force barrel, axial arms 3x optic, field agent grip, and the 60 round magazine. Again, Cold War weapons are pretty cut and dry. What you use on one rifle can be applied to basically every rifle, so we can breeze past that one. And the final weapon we'll talk about here is one that I think can be outclassed by some SMGs, but I think is just kind of holding down the fort on that top 10 list, that being the MP40. Again, one we've talked about beforehand, very good in close quarters with the recoil booster, the short barrel, the ISO 1M iron sight. Again, if you want to use the slate reflector, by all means go for it. You do get that hair benefit in terms of ADS speed. The folding stock, personally, I'm still running the pistol grip for that additional sprint to fire speed, as well as ADS speed. That's just personal preference. The Gorenko 45 round magazine, lengthened, the taped grip, again, buffed with the Season 4 update, unmarked and quick. This one really maximizing some of your mobility. And while I still think that things like the Blixen, the Marco do outperform this, it is still fun to revisit this again for some of the movement and handling that it has. So check that out. But that's going to round out our top 10 here for this Season 4 introduction. Let me know your thoughts down below. Again, by no means is all of this a definitive 1 to 10 list. I definitely think that some of the ones we started out with do hold some higher ground here in that top 10. But if you feel anything else should be in this list, feel free to let me know down below in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, though, drop a like on it. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Warzone, whether that be loadouts and tips and tricks, or things like Modern Warfare 2 content upcoming. I'd love to have you in the community. But that said, go check these out, try them out for yourself. Let me know how you do with them. But until next time, I'll see you guys later. Thanks so much for watching. My name is Espresso. Take care and peace.